Hi, welcome back. Okay, another parable of Jesus. Remember, Jesus spoke in parables a lot. And the reason he did was because he wanted people who really wanted to know what it meant to be able to find out what it meant. But for people who didn't really care, it would be hidden and they would never know what Jesus was really talking about, which would be fine with them because they didn't really care anyway. So it's kind of the idea that what Jesus had to say was so important that only people who really wanted to know about it would find out. And people who didn't really care, it would just go on by them. So this is another parable of Jesus. I'm calling it the pearl. Sometimes it's referred to as the pearl of great price. And there's a whole series of these parables, and they all have kind of the same point. And you'll see what that is a little bit later. This one's found in Matthew chapter 13, verses 45 and 46. And we're going to look at it and then we're going to unpack it and try to understand what Jesus was trying to say and what that means for us today. And these are the two big questions that we always want to ask. Number one, what is the Bible saying? What was the Bible writer trying to say? And number two, what does that mean for me now as I understand it and apply it to my life? And try to change my life to fit what Jesus is teaching. So that's what we're going to try and do. Ready? Okay, so here we go. All right, notice this neat little word right here. Again, in other words, Jesus is using lots of parables to explain something. And this is another one. And that's why he says again. So what he's trying to explain, of course, is the meaning of the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is kind of an abstract sort of thing. You know, it's a little hard to be able to understand just what it is because we've never seen it. We were created for the kingdom of heaven, but then because Adam and Eve and all that stuff of sin, you know, it all went bad. And so none of us who are alive today have ever seen the kingdom of heaven. We don't know what that is. So when Jesus tries to explain it to us, we're like, I don't get it. It doesn't connect. I don't know what you're talking about. So Jesus uses parables to try to tell us what the kingdom of heaven is like. And here he says, okay, here's another parable, and it's about the kingdom of heaven. And I'm going to tell you what the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant who goes in search of fine pearls. And on finding one pearl of great price, great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. All right, so what is Jesus saying here? All right, let's take it apart piece by piece and make sure we understand what Jesus is trying to tell us. All right, first of all, we have the idea of the merchant here. And this is a merchant who buys and sells objects of great value. Maybe he specializes in pearls. I don't know. Maybe it's other kind of jewelry as well. Pearls, diamonds, rubies, emeralds. I'm not sure. But in Jesus' day, there were a few people at least who could afford these kinds of things, you know, kings and princes and, you know, rich people. And this guy is a merchant and he is looking for the best. So what does he represent? Well, actually, he represents us. I mean, if you and I are people who are looking for the best in life, if we're trying to find something of real value for our lives, if we're content with cheap stuff, you know, you can find that anywhere. If we're okay with stuff out of the 10-cent store, you know, cheap made in China junk, you know, then fine, you know. But if we're looking for really quality stuff and we want stuff in our lives that is worth something, that has real value and that's going to hold that value for a long time and it's going to be worth a lot and it's going to really make a difference in our lives, then we're like this merchant who is in search of fine pearls. So the pearl here represents something of real value, something that is wonderful, that is worthwhile, that is beautiful, that lasts and holds its value for a long time. So, you know, it's not like a lot of the stuff that is in our lives. It's the stuff that really, really matters, that really changes things, that really has value. So that's who the merchant represents. Hopefully, it represents you. I hope it represents me. I want what's of value in my life. I'm too old to fool around with stuff that just wastes my time. Books that just waste my time. There are whole thousands and thousands of books I could read, but most of them are a waste of time. Television programs are almost all a waste of time. Video games, I mean, we're just amusing ourselves to death with these things. We're just wasting time. And time is the one thing that none of us knows how much we have. I mean, we don't any of us live all that long, and some of us die really young, and to waste what time we have on worthless crap just doesn't make any sense. So hopefully you and I are like this merchant who's looking for the good stuff. Well, in this case, the merchant finds what he's looking for. He finds one pearl of great value. And the idea here seems to be that he finds something that is so fine, so magnificent, so wonderful, and so valuable that it is worth more than everything that he has ever found before. Because Jesus says when he finds it, he goes, he sells everything that he had in order to buy that one pearl of great value. So this is a representation of a person, hopefully you and me, who recognizes something of great value when he sees it. Now, not everybody does that. There are a lot of people who just don't recognize value when they see it. They spend so much time fooling around with cheap junk that isn't really worth anything that they don't know when they see something that it has real value to it. So, you're surrounded, and so am I, every day with people who have focused their lives on cheap junk. And now they really don't have anything to show for it. They've got a garage full of stuff, they got a house full of stuff, they got a basement full of stuff, but they haven't found what really lasts, what really matters, what endures. Um, we'll look at some other parables where Jesus focuses on this idea that you accumulate this stuff, but you can't take it with you, I mean, eventually, you're going to leave it all behind and somebody else is going to have it all. And so what's the point of that? What's the point of accumulating a house full of stuff, when it doesn't really last? I remember when I got my first car, I thought, oh man, this is so cool. It was a red TR3, a sports car, paid $500 for it. And I thought, oh, this is so cool. I'm never going to want anything again in my whole life, but within a few months, it had worn off. And within a few years, it was kind of old and rusty. And then I was eager to get rid of it because it wasn't really running well and it wasn't really working the way I wanted. Anyway, and I think back on how excited I was when I first had it, but after, a few years, I was glad to get rid of it. I think back to when we got Ariel, my first sailboat, my first real sailboat, and I thought, oh God, you are so good to me. I will never, ever ask for anything ever again. But you know what? Even that, as great as that is, and as much as I love it, um, I've wanted lots of things since then. Nothing satisfies us for very long. So, this pearl of great price, this represents something that is of such great value that it is worth giving up everything for it. And that's kind of the idea here, that we probably ought to highlight. The idea that in order to get this one pearl of great value, he was willing to sell everything in order to have that one thing. And that's kind of the way it is with Jesus, who, of course, is the pearl that we're seeking for here. This represents Jesus. And when you discover who Jesus is and and how much he loves you and how much he wants for you, then You want to know Jesus and to love Jesus and to follow Jesus and to obey Jesus and to be like Jesus. And if he says to you, which he does, I want you to give up everything that gets in the way so you can follow me 100%. You're willing to do it because you see that Jesus is of so much greater value than anything else that you're willing to do it. Let's unpack that idea a little bit more. I heard a story about this parable once. It's worth telling you. It kind of makes the thing come to life. So this guy, this merchant, he's looking for pearls, and he finds this one pearl in this shop, and it's the most magnificent thing he's ever seen in his life. And he says to the store owner who owns this pearl, he says to him, "Oh, this is a magnificent pearl. I want to buy it. How much is it?" And the merchant, the owner of the pearl says, "Well, how much have you got?" And the guy says, "Oh, well, I can clear out my inventory and I can raise, probably, maybe $500,000." And the guy says, "Well, I'll take the $500,000. Um, but there's more." So, it's like, okay, so, what more? Well, what else have you got? Well, that's really all the cash I've got. I could probably sell one of my cars and come up with some more. Oh, you have a car? I'll take the car. Okay, I'll take the car and trade too. Add that to the $500,000 in cash. Okay, great. Well, what else have you got? Well, man, I don't know. Maybe I could put my RV up. Oh, you have an RV? I'll take that. Okay, so the cash, the car, the RV. What else have you got? Well, I don't really have anything else. That I got my house. Okay, I'll take the house. Well, if you take the house, where are we going to live? I mean, you already got the cash, and you got the car, and you got the RV, and now you got the house. I mean, like, where's my family going to live? Oh, you have a family. Okay, I'll take the family. Oh, wait a minute. But there's that's everything. I mean, I don't have anything left. I have no money, I have no car, I have no house, I have no family. I've got nothing. Really? You've got nothing? No, I've got nothing. So, well, what about you? Well, yeah, I mean, there's me. Okay, I'll take you too. I'll take you. I'll take everything you have, and I'll take you. And then you can have the pearl of great value. And when it says he went and sold all that he had, I think this is really what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about all as in everything, everything that you have and everything that you are now belongs to Jesus. You give it all to Jesus. You give yourself to Jesus. You give him your life. You give him your future. You give him all your sins and mistakes and failures. You give him all your successes and honors and blessings. You give Jesus everything. You totally turn your life over to him and you say, Lord, because that's what Lord means, right? Lord means you're the Lord of it all. So you turn it all over to Jesus and you say, Lord, it's all yours. I am yours. Do with me whatever you want. I will go where you want me to go. I will do what you want me to do. Whatever you say, whatever you ask, I belong to you. And that's what Jesus means, I think, in this parable when he says, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. It's like a person who realizes how truly valuable Jesus and the kingdom of heaven are, and gives Jesus everything in order to have a part in this kingdom. Because Jesus really is the kingdom, right? He's the king. Wherever the king is, that's the kingdom. And so that's what the parable is all about. It's about recognizing the true value of what Jesus offers and how nothing else compares to that. How he wants us completely, and how if we really are looking for things of true value, we will take the offer. You see, the sad reality of our lives is that we were created for life up here in the kingdom. And that was a wonderful kind of thing. I mean, it was perfect, it was good, it was peaceful, it was happy, it was heaven, I mean, it really was. That's what we were created for, we human beings. We were created to live in the Garden of Eden, where everything was perfect and God was with us, and there was no death, and there was no sickness, and there was no sadness, and there was no war, and there was no poverty, and everything was the way God wanted it to be. But unfortunately, Adam and Eve made choices that affected all of us, and we're all infected now with this thing called sin. And as a result of sin, we all live in a fallen world. And this world is the opposite of the kingdom. It's broken, it's sinful, it's selfish, it's evil, it's wrong. Terrible things happen here. There's crime, and there's poverty, and there's war, and there's kidnapping, and there's terror, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes on in this world. Sure, there are still some wonderful things in this world, no question about it. I mean, there's flowers, that's a flower, and there's trees, that's a tree. And there's beautiful stuff left over from the kingdom that God created. But it's all, the trees die, and the flowers die, and people die, and your pets die, and I mean, everything is tainted by this thing called sin that makes it all sick and broken and ugly. Now, we're looking forward to a day when God's going to put it all back together again. And God's kingdom is going to be the reality that it used to be. And all of this will be no more. It'll all be wiped out. And you and I will be able to live in the kingdom that we were originally created for. But in the meantime, we're down here in this fallen, broken world where all these things happen that shouldn't happen. And this is our life. This is you and me. And we live down here in this present evil world, and life isn't so good down here. And Jesus says, if you want to leave this place and go here where you belong and be a part of this when it comes, then you can do it. Actually, you can start to do it right now, because there's a way in which you can start living in the kingdom right now. You live there, by faith. And you can do that the minute you discover the pearl of great price, Jesus, and trust him and believe in him and give yourself to him and surrender to him. You can start living right now. So even though you're down here, in this present evil age, that's people down here, you can be up here in the kingdom, living there right now by faith. Like you could go to another country, right? And let's say you go to China, and you might be living in China, but you're a citizen of the United States of America. And you might be living in China, but you don't belong there. You're an alien there because you're a citizen of the USA. And it's kind of like that for us. We're living here in this fallen, broken, sinful world where everything is messed up, but we are actually citizens of the kingdom of God. And that's where we want to be, and that's where we really live. So while we're living down here, we're living by the principles of the kingdom. So we live like we're living in the kingdom as best we can down here in this world. And that can happen for us the very minute that we recognize what the pearl of great price is all about and give ourselves to Jesus and allow him to be the Lord. Think about that word, the Lord of our lives. The Lord owns everything. He owns us, and we are his servants. And we're not sorry about that in the least, because we know he loves us and we love him. So we're happy to be his servants. That's the best possible life there is. And all of this, Jesus said, I want to tell you about the kingdom. It's not easy to understand. So here's a parable to try and give you some idea of what it's about. And my hope is that you'll get it and you want to be a part of that. And so if you get it and you want to be a part of it, just know that you can be right now. All it takes is surrender, which is another kind of word for faith and trust, giving yourself to God and not taking it back, not ever.